Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Greg Behrendt.
This is Bertcast.
It's a lot fancier than my setup.
Where do you do yours out of?
In the bedroom of our house.
Yeah.
We have like a big attic-y. We have a big bedroom. So like.
Wait, where are you living?
I live right over on.
You don't have to tell me we're recording.
Right by the golf course. I live over by the golf course.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, off Moore Park.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So we have a big bedroom and then with a vaulted ceiling and all that. And so like there's a living room desk side and then the bed. And it's almost like two rooms sort of in a way. But for some reason, it's just dead air in there.
Really?
Just quiet. Yeah.
Oh,
and
we get so much background fucking noise in this thing.
Yeah.
It's just, I did it for a long time. I did it just by myself, but I was just fucking it up so bad. Like one time I did an interview with Attell and the chickens started laying eggs. And so all you could hear was the chickens laying an egg.
Right. Mics will screw you over. Mics will fuck you over like when they're unidirectional or somebody's picking one up or you're too close to each other or whatever. You need a guy.
Yeah.
You need somebody.
I just told Leanne, I'll tell the listeners, I have this joke I'm working on about my daughter. My daughter is 13 and she wants distance. She just wants her space. She wants. She's an independence.
Yeah.
And I said I'm acting like I'm getting broken up with in college.
Yes.
And so I said to my wife, I said, she said, just give her space. And the joke I said, the only part of the joke that worked was, so I just got to act like I'm just not that into her. Right. And my wife's like, excuse me? So then I was doing this act out of like, oh, I didn't know you were coming to dinner tonight. Yeah, sure, sit down. I mean, I didn't know you were going to be here. But that's...
It's funny that like it turns that way with kids, right? I have two... oh, yeah. There's the jet circling just in case things go wonky with North Korea.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I have two daughters. I have 12 and 15. And
12 and 15?
Yeah.
So you're 15. You already went through that with your 15-year-old.
Yeah, kind of. They're both pretty nice. They're both pretty cool. The 15-year-old really is like, she's down for a hang. Yeah. She wants to she really likes hanging out. But the other one's like, no, I'm good. What? Yeah. I said, let's go. I got the keys. Let's go. Who's going to the store with me? No, I'm not going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, really? That's because I don't fucking ask everybody.
Yeah, I had a meltdown about that.
I know.
I had a fucking meltdown.
And you're like, fuck, dude, they're fucking 12. Let it go.
Dude, I said to Georgia, I called from the Rams game. This is what started this. I called from the Rams game a couple weeks ago, and they were all driving in from camping. There's been a girls' weekend camping trip. And I go, she answers the phone, and I go, hey, what's up? She said, nothing. What are you doing? So I'm at the Rams game. We're all meeting at the Hayslips for dinner. And she was like, this is the first I'm hearing of that. And I went, yeah, because I'm telling you. What do you mean the fucking first I'm hearing of it? And she was parroting a bunch of her mom's statements.
Yeah, right.
But
this is the first I'm hearing this. First I'm hearing this.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, because I'm telling you. I go, I'll meet you there. And she goes, Dad, I just have a lot on my plate tonight. Yeah. It's Sunday. I've been camping. And I was like, oh my God, she's doing the breakup thing. And I started panicking. And then I said some stuff that I'm sure I regretted, and then...
Here's the other shitty part about being married is around the same time, your wife does the same exact thing. Yeah, I just can't do Saturday. We've got a thing, we got to go late, and then I was going to meet somebody, and then I just need some time alone. I'm like, who the fuck does anyone talk to me anymore? Wait a minute, what happened here? Yeah. Because when I was a kid, my dad was like the shit, and if my dad said we were doing something, fuck, we were all in, man. Yeah. My dad called all the shots.
I never once... I had statements said to me like, don't you fucking cry, be a goddamn man. Like I remember I almost cried one time because he was yelling at me. Yeah. And he was like, don't you fucking cry, be a goddamn man. And I was like, I remember being like, I don't think this is super healthy, but...
That was just that generation's version of, you okay? Yeah. You doing okay? Just checking in. I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like the thing about it now is that like it's two extremes. It's like when I was a kid... Just like, I'm a little older than you. There was a lot of like, just go out. Why are you in here? Go outside. Yeah. Just get out of here. Like you were just in the way. People didn't like kids. And now it's like this whole world revolves around there fucking like, is everything okay?
My mom never sat in fucking bed with me.
No one asked me how I was doing. Yeah. And I think my parents loved me. Like I didn't feel like I was having an unusual parenting experience. I mean, it was very
Where'd you grow up?
San Francisco and Marin.
Really?
Yeah.
I know you started there, but I didn't know that's where you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up. My dad was in television. He was the general manager of the NBC affiliate. Started as a cameraman, worked his way up.
Really?
Yeah.
So your television was always in your blood.
Yeah, TV was around always, yeah. But I was like, as soon as I got an Aerosmith record, that's all I care about. I don't care about anything else but music. That's all I like.
Really?
Yeah, my parents were into comedy too. They used to go to The Hungry Eye and at Purple Onion. They saw, Phyllis Diller and Cosby and Newhart and, you name it, man. Anybody from that time. They loved nightclub stuff. That my dad liked jazz. So they were it was very Mad Men. They were like really that sort of era of parent.
Are they still alive?
My dad is. My dad's still alive. He's 83, lives on the top of Nob Hill. He's got a penthouse apartment across the street from Grace Cathedral.
Really?
And he remarried a couple of years ago.
Only child?
He was an only child. I have a sister, but my sister passed away 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
Cancer?
No, she had renal failure.
What?
And yeah, kidneys.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Was that tough considering you partied so much and you feel like, oh, fuck, that should have been me?
She partied harder.
Oh, really?
My sister partied harder. My sister took it to another level. I had it together to stay in the game.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, it came from my mom's mom was a fucking disaster. My mom was not great, and my sister didn't do it much better.
Really?
The bug is, and it went all through my mom's side of the family. My dad's side of the family is a little bit better, but yeah. Yeah, my mom's family was just like bummer drinking, like already a bummer. Like they started at bummer.
Really?
Yeah, dark. Yeah. So so I fucking, I dodged a bullet.
I said that to my therapist the other day. He said, "What do you like about drinking?" I said, "When the buzz hits, it feels like a first kiss." I said, "My stomach drops out," and I go, "Oh, I know her. Oh, I didn't know you were going to do that to me again."
Yeah.
He's like, it doesn't sound like it's a very dark place. I very seldomly get dark. I get dark. My problem, if I was to say I had a problem, is I get excited and I'll have these days that'll just show up out of nowhere where it's like you're on vacation, you're camping, and everyone has a cocktail, and I just party all day and party all night, and then the next day I don't feel like running. Like those are my problems. And I don't get angry. I don't get dark. I can, but. Yeah, it's
a personal thing. I think people just either like for me, I'm like, look, things are just not good, and I'm not good, and I don't know why. But this is what are the things I do a lot? I drink, and I eat after I drink, but I mostly drink. So what if I took that out of the equation? What would that be like? And it was kind of like, there were events and shit that happened because, I drank, but it really was, for me, it was like personal. It's like I didn't judge it against anybody else's drinking or alcoholism or what they thought alcoholism was. I was fucking miserable, dude. And I was like, maybe this is the thing. And when I took that out of the equation, I was like, oh man, I can work. I can get things finished. I need all of my faculties just to be able to fucking spell my name. Like I really am not a genius.
By the way, your last name's hard to spell.
Yeah, and it didn't change it. Because I couldn't find a suit. I couldn't find a Dane Cook. Ugh. Or I have a buddy named Zane Holloway. I'm like, fuck, dude, that name's almost too good.
Zane Holloway.
Zane, he's a great guy. He's a comic. He's a really nice guy. But I'm like, that's a lot to live up to, bro. That name is challenging you every day to get out and be a fucking star.
Brian Posehn.
Fucking Posehn. I came up with Posehn.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was his real name?
No, and that is his name. But he was one of the guys
I
I
thought you
started
said
with.
I came up with it as in he had a different name.
Yeah.
Brian Dick Doc.
His name was Karen for a long time.
You came up with Brian, not Zach.
Patton. Me, Patton.
Blaine.
Cho.
Yeah.
Everybody in 93, 94, 92, 93, 94, everybody was in San Francisco. People would come out for the comedy competition and then just stay.
That was the epic time of the San Francisco comedy competition.
Yeah. So Rhodes was there and Hedberg lived there and Merritt lived there for a while. And fucking when I started, Dana Carvey had just left and Dana and Robin had sort of just left, but Jake Johansson, Ellen had been there for a while. Paula Poundstone was still around.
How tight were you guys?
The bunch of us that me, Cho, whatever that grouping that people sort of refer to as the alternative comedy scene, that group of people is incredibly tight at the time, back then. So like, but almost anybody, like Attell would be on the fringe of that, because anytime somebody great came to town, 10 of us would go down, find them, and drink them into the ground. Like, oh, you're coming with us. Like, we just loved comedy, and we loved the guys that we knew were, you know, maybe there because they couldn't get Rich Jenny that weekend, or somebody who was like, you know what I mean? There was always like, the Punchline and Cobbs were good at throwing young guys up.
And that was the scene, Punchline, Cobbs, and they had the Purple Onion.
So there's Punchline, Cobbs. There was an Improv. There was there were Punchlines in Walnut Creek and Rooster Teeth Feathers, because the Bay Area is huge. So there was like 10 major like headlining clubs that you could work, and then the Holy City Zoo and the other cafe and like these other littler rooms that people could work. So you could work all the time.
Did you feel Did you feel like you could do what you wanted to do, or did you feel like the parameters of what was happening was permeating what you should be doing? Does that make sense?
No, because San Francisco, if you weren't doing something strange, you weren't good. Like, it was almost to the exclusion of having a skill set. You know, It was like the throwing off of everything, the shackles of older comedians. It's like if you wore a blazer, if your jokes, if you could do 5 minutes clean, it was like, yeah. You know, people really wanted it to be different.
If you were like, my dad's an interesting bug.
Yeah,
like if it sounded like you were trying to pitch a sitcom, it rang that.
Yeah, right.
That was the thing that turned me off when I moved to New York, and you'd see some guys in traditional rooms being like, "Oh, they're working." My girlfriend's dad is a really goofy guy, Vietnam vet. You know what I mean? You know the
right. Yeah. Like laying it out there for you: first act, second act, third act. Here it is. You know, we were like. I'm trying to think, like the year I started, the two biggest things in comedy were Kinnison and Dice were big.
What year did you start?
So I started in '89.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh my God.
And I was in an improv group, and Cho was in the improv group, and she said, I'd gotten a degree from theater at the University of Oregon, and until Margaret said you should do stand up, I really had never considered it. I wanted to play in bands. I was still trying to make music work. I was acting a little bit. And Cho was like, you should do stand-up. You really should.
Did you take yourself seriously at the time, or?
When I started?
Yeah.
Well, no, but here was the thing about it. When I did it, I was like, oh, fuck. Man, this is not, like, compared to how hard it is for me to do everything else, it felt kind of like when I first got in the theater department in college and went, oh, these are my people. Like, this is the kind of, I'm a show business person. That's just, I don't know if it'll be performing or not, and then comedy performing came pretty easily. Jokes were always hard. Yeah. You know, to be good, to be clever, to be interesting. And, I thought I had to write a lot at the beginning, but that's not how I do it.
Everyone has their own. I think that's the one misconception is you hear someone like Seinfeld say, no, a Mason gets up every morning and starts building until like 9 to 5. That's what we should write as comics, 9 to 5. And I'm like, oh, you can't just beat inspiration into the ground like that. Sometimes it shows up and sometimes it's not there.
Yeah, I've never been able to make it work. And whenever I write something, I'm like, that's not the way I talk, and that's not an experience I actually had, and it's going to feel like a lie. And when something happens, you become more observant. You realize how you can take a smaller event and make it into a bigger one. The guys that are, there's some guys that do that are amazing and can make a walk to the fridge this epic adventure, right? Yeah. And that's sort of like, you and I aren't that dissimilar in that, like, we get up there and we have an event that we're going to share.
There were a few guys that I was drawn to when I was young that I saw, and I went, yeah, okay, like that makes sense for me. Like that gives me hope. It was you, Geraldo, Tom Rhodes. Yeah. Like it was all this very similar, like you had a joke about you're going to have to tell me what special you did this on, but about the concierge at the hotel cutting you off and saying,
"Oh my God, that was from my very first." That was like that was either I can't remember. I think I did it twice, to be honest with you. I think I did it on a one-man show thing that I did on HBO called Fantastic, or it might have been on that guy from that thing. But I talk about no, you know what it is?
What?
That story is a what's it called? The storytelling show, A Moth.
Is
right?
it?
Yeah. I think so. Anyway, it's a story about Ginny when I was dating Garofalo, and I was in love with her, and she never was in love with me. I mean, we had been friends for a long time, and then I just did that thing where I'm like, we were friends and we sort of had a thing, and then I ruined it by wanting to make it official. And she was happening. Like, it was right when she was like, she'd just done Reality Bites and was making Cats and Dogs, and I was in a band that was kind of failing, and I was, drinking. This is right before I quit drinking, and she left, went back to New York. She'd moved out from Saturday Night Live, and then she went back and moved in with a guy, and but they were living in a hotel, and I kept calling her. That thing of like, man, I'd get drunk and I'd just pick up the phone and call her and go, why?
Yeah.
And the one time I called, and the guy at the desk was like, first off, he couldn't understand what I was saying. I was so fucked up I had to spell her name. And then he goes, hey man, are you sure you want to make this call? And I was like, no, fuck it. I hung up, and like not that long after that, I sobered up because I was like, oh man.
What year was that?
So that was 96. Yeah. So I was down here. I moved down here in 94. Everybody came down. So we, like, all those people were in San Francisco, and Patton and Posehn came down here and got jobs on Mad TV right around the same time as Cross moved out from Boston, because we were all close with those guys, to work on the Ben Stiller show. Okay. So we all kind of rallied around the Ben Stiller show, or like almost the cancellation of the Ben Stiller show, because then everyone was sort of around, and those guys started working on Mr. Show, and then we met this, and then a lot of the guys, Tompkins came out from Pittsburgh, right? He's Philadelphia, where he's from. Like, everyone was just out here, and we all kind of collected in this giant, group of guys that still couldn't get sets at the Improv.
Really?
Yeah. And then Beth Lapidus had her show, The Uncabaret, which she had just started, and my friend Laura Milligan had this sketch show that she used to do on Monday nights. That was sort of like it was a fake celebrity poetry slam. And called Tantrum, and that's where Tenacious D did their first songs, and Stiller would come out and do sketches, and Will Ferrell and a couple guys from he was in the Groundlings would come out and do this thing where they wore unitards and held up the Canadian flag. Like, it was just weird shit.
What was it like? Did you ever feel like there were, like, I don't know the right way to ask this question, but like, I remember when I was like, maybe this is a question I'd say to me, but like, one thing that always impressed me with the alternative scene was that there were so many original voices. When I did Surf Reality or Collective Unconscious and Lower East Side, I always felt like I ended up trying to be like them as opposed to being myself, because I was so young and impressionable. Did you ever feel that? Because you are a traditional storyteller. Like, when you tell stories, you have your own personality, your own style to it, but you are like a regular dude. You're not. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. Yes, we all wanted to work in comedy clubs. I think there's this idea that we didn't want to be in comedy. It's like, not one of us didn't want to be a comedian. We just didn't want to be the same comedian. Okay. And we didn't want to be the comedian that came before us, which I'm sure is true of any young group of people. Like, part of the thing of, aging in show business is you start to go, oh, there we go. See, now it's a whole new crew of people, or here comes this group of folks. At the same time, you forget that, like, your career is long and expansive, and it takes different shapes, and different kinds of people like you over time for different reasons. There's an accrued sense of they know who you are that has nothing to do with what's hot or new or interesting or different, and people can like both of those things. But at the time, comedy wasn't that big. I mean, fuck, it felt like when you started, like there's like 7 comics.
Explain that to people listening, because that is true. There was no comedy scene when you got into it. The comedy scene it had died in the 80s. And it was literally, it was people that got into gold mining because they wanted to be archaeologists.
Right. Right. It sort of died in the 80s, but here's what's interesting. It died in the 80s in the clubs, but it lived on television because of cable. So you have all these people like us doing TV sets on random Comedy on the Road, Caroline's Comedy Hour, VH1's, comedy, MTV's Half Hour Comedy Hour, like all these different sort of cheapy thrown together comedy shows with young comics that they could just fucking make money off. They just cheap programming. So you were doing TV sets, but you hadn't even fucking featured somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And so we were doing that, had that kind of TV exposure stuff. But we weren't, at that point, TV started to thin out, and having a booking used to be, if you had an evening at the Improv, you could fucking sell out a club.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, you got to kind of get on Letterman, or you got to, they kept raising the bar, and it just kept expanding from there, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Every year, bigger, more venues, more people, more ways to do comedy, and eventually there's just so much that there's no one way to do it, which I think is true of almost all art now. It's like, you can still be a guy that do one-liners, and you can be a storyteller, and you can be whatever you would want to even call what Reggie Watts does, or any of those those things where you go, well, it feels it could be in comedy, but it could also be in jazz, or it could also be.
I don't know what Reggie Watts does, but I watch it.
Yeah, I do too, and I kind of love. I don't have to. We were so judgmental and so shitty, I think. I mean, Cross and I talked about this. David Cross and I talked about this one time. He goes, "Fuck, we didn't like you if you had a callback." We were so judgy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think just because you were insecure, you didn't know, it took a long time for us to sort of break through. It didn't, probably didn't feel like that to other people.
We
but
didn't even
you.
like you if you had a callback.
Yeah.
By the way, I just started using callbacks in my act
They're
recently.
Fucking greatest. I have a
It's
fucking
they're
shell.
so
Oh my God,
great
they're
when you
greatest.
have a callback.
Fuck, it's the best.
And there was a distancing yourself from traditional stand. When I started 95. No, 97. I started 97, 98 roughly. And I remember just the perception. It was so ingrained, don't be a hack. It was and it was said by a bunch of hacks at the time, but they were the alternative scene's where it's at. And you'd go to these alternative rooms, and I think at that time things had started to morph in that there were more hacks in that room trying to recreate what you guys had started, as opposed to doing something original.
Yes, and I also think it also became that thing of there's no there's no anti-you. You either are you or you fucking aren't, and you either have. Most people have about a way to be funny, and then they put it into whatever situation they are. Man, it's not that fucking. It's not that complicated. You either are fucking funny or you're not, man.
I'm working on this new hour, and I was like, I think I'm telling the same joke 5 different times.
Oh my God, I know I looked at I did 2 specials that were on 2 things are on Comedy Central, and they're probably 5 years apart. I'm like, oh my God, there's that version of that, there's that version of that, there's that one, and also not as funny, kind of funny, a little bit better, but the whole rest of this thing is not good enough to get anyone there. There's no flow, and also you can do it with everybody. If you listen to Patton's records, or listen to anybody, and you go, Sarah, if you just sat down and really picked at it for a little while, you could go, okay, Sarah does 3 different kinds of jokes, or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm saying Sarah Silverman. So yeah, eventually you just end up meeting you, and that's it. And then you are who you are. And I remember sometimes people really wanted to make sure they knew that I wasn't as alternative as I had a guy go, you're not really alternative. And I was like, I don't know what you're saying. And I think what they were saying is you have more of a bro vibe, and I don't like it. You seem like you'd beat David Cross up, and we like David Cross. And then my guy was like, why are you even friends with David Cross? I go, because we're friends.
Yeah.
You're kind of stuck in some idea of what this is all supposed to be, and I can't help you through it.
That is what I think. I'm looking at in this is that you did seem like the most sellable. All that group seems like they were hard sells to the industry, including Janine, who, by the way, I have to say, because everyone listening to this knows this already, I've had a huge crush on her since 91 or whenever I first saw her in the first thing, Reality Bites Back, which I guess was probably 94 or something. Dude, it's from that day to this day. She
was a universal moment that I think everybody had at the same time, right?
Oh.
She had a half-hour comedy hour set that, Janine happened to write it right around. It's almost like she was the kid sister of Kurt Cobain, right? It was those were the two sort of. That was sort of the boy and girl version of what was happening in the world at the time. Which is if you remember, it's so weird considering where we are now. It was a very lefty time. It was a very all the big bands. All those. All the grunge bands were very pro. They were pro hip hop. They all talked about hip hop all the time, how hip hop was better than rock. They talked about being gay. They talked about, they all were down with the Riot Girl thing. Like they were all really like, most of those dudes were pretty lefty but still had a sense of like, oh, they're fucking, this guy's fucked. They're, they're kind of manly men that also fucking embraced everything. And that was a kind of a cool moment. And I think, Warrant had just been popular. So anything that felt like that, but I remember the first time I saw Rhodes. He came into San Francisco and he had fucking hair down to his ass. And I was like, that fucking guy's great. I love the way that guy does it. And to be honest, I never he came like a little bit after me and we got compared a lot, quite honestly. But Dane, I understood what Dane was doing. It just was bigger than needed to be done for me. And I always thought, you don't have to be that. You bring it. You're there, man. You don't have to go that big with it. It felt, but I also thought, I'm really not sure why I'm telling him what to do because he's in a stadium right now and he can't hear me, but I always appreciated that way of being on stage, of being able to walk it, being bring it, like that's just, and I think part of the alternative thing was like, well, that's not how people are in real life. It's like, well,
the difference in my opinion, when I came out here and I saw alternative comedy versus regular comedy was, I remember seeing Dane and I couldn't wrap my head around what I was seeing because I'd never seen anyone with the confidence that they would never bomb. Like I remember going like, so wait, I remember saying to like Nick Sports and he never bombs? Like this is every time he comes on, it's just the second he come on, it's just this, oh shit, it's happening. And then I remember seeing you, I want to say at the Improv, but I guess not if you weren't.
I look like I could bomb.
No. But I remember being engaged and going, oh, I could hear him talk forever. And like, nice, and it was a very different energy of like, and the same with Janine. It's like, I saw Janine, and by the way, shout out to Janine. I love her to death, but eat a hot one in Montreal 2 years ago. And I did too. We all ate hot ones. Oh, but let me tell you something. I've never enjoyed watching someone eat a hot one ever because she was so breaking down life within the moment that I was like, this is what is beautiful about what she does. I was like, take one to the chest. We're all taking one to the chest. But when I do it, it'll be sad. It'll be sad and it'll be desperate. And you'll go, well, he's actually trying to get them back.
No, but see, that's the thing. I don't think people really understand that all you're doing is having a human experience with somebody else. That's it. It's really very simple. Some people can communicate really well. Some people can't. Some people, Janine was never a riot. She never had, like, I'm trying to think of the guys that used to just come in. He worked with Regan a lot back then, Brian Regan, and Schimmel in a different way.
David Cross was always big and loud. I found him to be.
Cross was always
confident,
but also he'd come out with a challenge. Yeah. He'd come out and go, let's imagine. Here's what I like to do. I like to imagine that Humphrey Bogart is my dentist, and then he'd just sit there on stage and imagine it without fucking saying a word, just. And he'd fucking take the joke to the point where people were fucking furious, and I'd be like, dude, I'm such a people pleaser, I'm nervous for you right now. And I always was like, how does he have the fucking balls to do that? Or he'd come out and do the whole thing in a different voice and then switch it, and there would be like some jokes, but almost like, and the comics would always love it and crowds would be fucking angry. And I was always and Janine too. Janine only had Janine's act. She didn't have anywhere else to go. She didn't have a dick joke. She wasn't afraid. She hadn't set herself up with a bunch of things to get herself out of a mess.
That is such a brilliant point. I have 5 things, 9 things at any given point that I'm not proud of that will get me out of a mess. I had a friend the other day text me and go, why would you tell that joke? It's really hacky, and I think a bunch of other people have it. And I go, I had to get the fuck out of a mess. I was not in a good spot. And he was like, yeah, but just go be in the bad spot. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I know, but my ego got involved and I didn't want to bomb. And he was like, just bomb. Don't. Just bomb.
I think there's some truth in that. I mean, you have to I don't know. I don't think I I used to watch Chris Rock go out and bomb all the time. In New York, like he'd be in New York and he'd fucking pop in and do a set. And then 3 nights later, he'd be on TV. And I would go, well, fuck, how did he, those are hilarious jokes. He told them similar 2 nights ago because he just went in and was like, that's what I got. Yeah. And I'm going to find out from the crowd if it's any good or where I should go with it, right? And I always admired that. But also, if there was a fucking riot out there and they needed somebody to calm somebody down, they'd get you or they'd get me. They wouldn't get Janine. We just have a different way of communicating with people. We just are different people. So there's no reason for me. And I really did. I tried to like be intense, or I tried not to take the mic out. And I remember that one time I was working with Rhodes and he was like, what are you leaving a mic in the stand for? I was like, I don't know, man. I'm just trying to like, he's like, fucking take your cock out and rock. What's wrong with you? Yeah. Like, that's what you do, man. You're a prowler. You know, and he said in that Rhodes way. And I was like, well, if Rhodes said I'm a prowler, you know? And I was like, right, I know, dude, but I'm trying to assimilate with these other people because quite honestly, I played sports a lot of my life and now I have these alternative friends and I love them and I kind of want to be like them, even though I had different upbringing, different background, you know, different worldview, you know? Yeah. So it's like, it was, but it was a fucking great time to do comedy.
I think I started at a really great time for where comedy is right now. I think I started at a good time in that like my sophomores were like Jim Norton, Pete Corielli, Bobby Kelly, all the New York scene. Like Colin Quinn was the juniors, Attell was the juniors, Sarah was a junior, Brewer, and I feel like I'm really proud that I started in that place. But I'm jealous of the kids. It's so funny
because Colin, when I came down here, Colin was out here. Yeah. And he and Janine were dating at that time where she was really, and he was part of the beginning of what that scene was here. It was like him and Dana Gould, Beth Lapidus, it was like 10 people. And he was one of them. And Colin would fucking do great and he would eat a dick. Dude, he would go down hard.
Did you see the special he did in his, he did it in a Boston Bruins leather jacket?
No.
Oh, it is
I just feel bad about that.
The worst special you've ever seen. Yeah. It's in, I want to say it's like the South Beach Comedy Festival. Yeah. And he just is bombing for a prolonged time. And I was such a huge Colin Quinn fan. And then I saw this and I was like, whoa, why would they ever air this? But man, he makes me laugh hard as shit.
Yeah. And he's also like, it's all real and it's him. And I think that's part of it. Part of the thing is, and again, like with Janine, it's like, man, when it hits, it's meaningful. And when it doesn't, he's still that guy telling that story and people are still okay with him. They don't feel like, because he doesn't look like he bombed. He doesn't look like he's doing the wrong thing. You know, when I bomb, man, I look like I fucking look like, you look like I look like I did when I used to go play football. Yeah. You know, and they finally put me in the game. I'd be like, oh, fuck. You know, like I just look panic stricken. I mean, now that I've been around it for so long, it makes me laugh sometimes because I know that thing in my heart. Like my batting average is already high enough. If I never do well again, I did way much better than I ever expected to. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter as much. You know, you try to. But I'm like, well, I'm just gonna learn from this. You know, I'm gonna enjoy these silences and hear what my words sound like just by themselves, unhindered by laughter.
Sometimes it's nice to go like, oh fuck, I'm in the thick of it. This is what this feels like. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But it always makes me go home and go, okay, reorganize. Reorganize. Why are you doing this? Why is this still here? Get rid of this. Why are you hanging on to that? You know, of course you didn't do well. And then you came out, you had no opener. You kept thinking that's not an opener. You know, there's little things I go, like if I don't give myself a great opener, I fucking fight every time. And when I'm following, you know, sometimes the kids that are featuring now, I'll follow a guy and go, fuck, I didn't prepare to follow. And I don't have the same, you know, I had a period where I had a lot of people come out and see me that really knew me. And it's not quite like that anymore. So I got to hustle, you know, and that's fun, man. But I got to do the work.
You've had a really fascinating career because I think you've probably had more ups and downs than anyone I know. Like you've had more ups, and you've had like you've had ups that are, I mean, literally like chin scratching ups where you're like I just told Leanne in there that you wrote the book He's Just Not That Into You, and she was, the look on her face was like, what? Like that was a Bible for relationships,
right?
in the Sex and the City age.
You know what's so funny is that the things where I've had success is when it wasn't my idea or I got out of the way and let something happen.
Yeah.
Because that book was not my idea. I didn't want to write a relationship book. It was something I genuinely said to somebody when I was working at Sex and the City. It was a girl that was seeing a guy who didn't want to have sex with her, and I was like, she's like, you think that's bad? And I was like, fuck, yes. You know, they've like been going out for a while, and they'd never fucked. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you still doing that? Like, you're a TV writer. You're a woman in this field, and you're on a fucking. What's the value here? Why have you devalued yourself? Like my sister who just waits outside of prisons for guys to get out.
Yeah.
And I go, we grew up watching plays. Wouldn't she become that person?
Yeah.
You know, and so it became this sort of like thing that like I like talking about, but I would never think in a million years to write a relationship book. It would have never occurred to me to go, you know who needs my opinion right now is women.
But
I love them, but I don't.
Probably the majority of women in this country read that book.
There's a lot of people read the book. I will say.
Do you have an idea of how many people?
I don't know, 5 million copies or something like that.
Fucking insane.
It was a lot.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal, and it was a surprise, and it was cool, but it was also strange because I put 15 years into my stand-up career. And in one afternoon, it wiped it. It just knocked it off the block because it was like. I remember that book coming out, and I was like, oh, cool, because I'd been a fan of yours before. I remember seeing you walk across the street one time, and I was working. I think I had a TV show, but I saw you and I was like, "What's up, Greg?" And you were like, "Eh," and just kept walking. And I was like, "Ah, shit! I probably should have said I was a comic or something." And I was like, "Ah, who gives a fuck?" But I would have loved it.
But then I saw. That book came out, and then I was like, and then it was like, it seemed like the Hollywood machine got at your heels and started throwing you.
You know, it was an interesting time because like it followed the heels. So it just sort of happened, right? And Oprah, the Oprah was the thing, right? I did one Oprah one afternoon, and that was it. And she dedicated a whole hour to the book. And she didn't even want the other author on it, whose idea the book was, who was the Liz DiCillo, who was the writer at Sex and the City.
Yeah.
And has since gone on to write movies, and she's super talented. But Oprah just wanted me telling people, fucking, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Get out of that. Like, that's what she wanted, because that's what those shows are, right? And so I did that for an hour one day, that show. And then as soon as I got off, I was like, that fucking was... That I could tell. It'd be like hitting a grand slam and go, I hit a grand slam. And we all saw it, right? It happened. Like it fucking happened. I've never done this before.
Break down the moment, because I love these moments in careers. Who came to Oprah with you? Did you? So
Amira came. So my wife came, and Liz. They had Liz on the show, but they put me up on the couch with Oprah. They put Liz in the front, and they lined up a bunch of girls that were going to ask me questions, and sometimes their boyfriends were with them. And I think my manager, Julie James, came at the time. And we did a lot of prep. They fucking prep you really hardcore. And I was nervous as shit because I was like, fuck, I've never given anyone advice that wasn't a friend. And now I'm going to do it on television. And, but even from the beginning, like the thing that's really true is like we turned the first gal into our agent, and she went home and broke up with her boyfriend, longtime boyfriend. And then when it went to the publishing house, 2 people got out of relationships there, and this is before it ever became a book. And I started thinking, fuck, people are gonna, oh my God, I got nervous about it because I'm like, there's gonna be dudes that are gonna get pissed about this.
Yeah. Kinda.
And I went to Australia to do stand-up right before Oprah. I got asked to do some Australian MTV thing. It was me and the Flight of the Conchords and Bill Burr and Todd Barry, and I just sort of knew Bill, and I'd seen him like in clubs, and I liked him, and he was, young, and he was pretty. He was more screamy and less, like he was figuring out who he was.
What year is this?
2004.
Yeah.
I saw him do really well one night in a comedy club. He did pretty good. And then I saw him go on like, what was that guy's name? The Carson Daly's thing. remember Carson Daly had a show and they did stand up, and he fucking went down hard, dude. Like that's one of the I want to find all the ones I saw and my first Conan, put them all together and just call fucking eating it, dude. Like you can hear the cables being moved. Like it's so quiet. And he went up and did this set, and they always had like little kid crowds, and then nobody really. Bill was just sort of like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that's tough. That's tough, man. And I didn't see how he sort of codified and became who he is. Like I felt it when I was hanging out with him. He was really funny and mean to me about the book. Why are you going to tell everybody? But why would you tell everybody? You're selling out. We went this whole thing. And I was like, look, dude, wouldn't you tell your sister she was dating an asshole? Like, we went and had this whole discussion about it. And he was always super sweet to me. And then it fucking happened, and it was like weird, dude. My mom died that summer, so my dad was pretty distraught, obviously. And then this thing happened, and it pulled us both right out of it. And I took him to New York with me, and we did Larry King. We did everything. They did a 20/20 on us. There was Larry King and The View and all three of the morning shows, man. Some of them twice.
Wow.
Like it was just like everything, thousands and thousands and thousands of radio interviews. Like it was just like this thing. The book sold out. Then there were people fighting for a book in a bookstore, made the news. And then I was at a bookstore, and a woman was literally at the counter getting upset with somebody, and I gave her my copy of the book. Like it was like I was like, I'm living in a movie version of my life. That's so strange. And then the movie thing happened, and the reason it did is because they'd made a movie out of How to Lose a Guy, which was a stick figure impulse buy joke book that was at like Urban Outfitters, and they're like, we can make a movie out of anything, we just need a title. And so I see. Liz and I went around, we pitched a film idea, we went to everybody. There's a bidding war. We got a deal from New Line. Drew Barrymore, I had her come produce it. I knew, and I knew they weren't going to keep the script that we wrote, but we sold them one anyway. Yeah. And then she came in and turned it into an ensemble comedy, which is fucking fine with me. Yeah. People were always like, did you like the movie? I was like, they fucking made a movie. Yeah. Like it's all fucking prizes. Like it was all, so it was wild, man. It was really, really wild, but it was fast. Really? And it changed things really, really quickly. And then it almost seems like in that, and then I did this, and we sold the second book, and then I had a talk show, and then boom, it's over.
So wait, the talk show was Oprah Harpo produced?
No, they made an offer, and then I didn't want to do a talk show at all. I just wanted to do something on Comedy Central. And Comedy Central was like, well, what? You're kind of this guy. Like everyone was like, Louis, we know you're hilarious, but what are you gonna? You're a girly guy. you got to make girly guy content.
It's almost like I remember someone telling me one time, so what if you ever want to quit drinking? I go, I'll just quit drinking. And they're like, well, yeah, but that's your brand. Like no one would come to see you. And I was like, people will still come see me. And they're like, well, I don't know. And then when we started doing this Sober October thing, and agents and managers were like, no, you can't quit drinking. And I was like, hold on. I was like, wait, what have I done? Have I created something I don't like? Because like I don't want to ever be told what to do. I have a real problem being told what to do. Yeah. And then I was like, no, I'll quit drinking. And I quit drinking for the month, and it was completely fine. Like there was nothing that changed, but you do get those people in your head going, no, you're this guy now.
I think my biggest challenge, and I think for a lot of people, but for me, it's maintaining a sense of self in almost everything that you do, and go, look, I hear you. And I think probably together, collectively, you think you're right, but I'm right. Yeah. I know me. I can feel it in my bones. And I know this is, and for a long time, I said no to all the talk show stuff. And the reason we didn't go with Oprah was there were these clauses about when I could do stand-up and when I couldn't do stand-up. And just like you, I'm like, well, because they own you and they want to make sure you're not ruining her brand. And then I'm like, well, I'm not her brand. And yeah. So, but at the bottom of my heart, I didn't want a fucking talk show. I don't watch daytime talk shows, and I didn't even love nighttime ones other than to be on them. Yeah. I never felt like I needed to. I was like, that to me isn't making content. Like I'd rather go back to school and learn how to direct and be David Fincher. Like I'd rather do something where I feel like I'm there to talk about content as opposed to talking to people about content as content. I just never thought I think the guys that do it are great, but I like that. Colbert's political. I like when they have a point of view because I go, okay, at least you're being you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need you to fucking just be a host.
I watched your talk show.
Oh my God, that was funny.
You're the reason. I believe you're single-handedly the reason that vests came into fashion.
That might have happened at the same time.
No, I've never seen a guy in a vest before, and I was like,
hilarious.
Whoa. I was like, that's a fucking cool look. And then I started seeing vests. Like, I remember Adam Richman from Man vs. Food wore a vest, and I was like, oh, fucking vest, huh? And I was like, but you have to be able to tuck your shirt in if you wear a vest,
right?
And I'm not a tuck your shirt in guy.
And they're specific, and that's a funny fight because I wanted to just wear a suit and cut my hair, and they were like, no. And I, if you never saw my talk show, if you just imagine Steve from Stranger Things, that haircut, but on me, and it's all blondie. I look like, when I was on Oprah, I was heavy, so I used to say, people would flip it on and go, why is the dude from the Offspring giving relationship advice?
From the Offspring.
Yeah, so it had a particular look, and somebody showed a clip of it at something I was at the other night, and I actually went. It's funny, you need a little distance sometimes from things, right? And so when it ended, and it was a really hard experience, and when
how long did you do it?
I did it we only filmed for 4 months, but I shot 133 episodes or something.
Holy shit.
Right? Like, we banged it out, and I learned a lot, and I really loved the day-to-day. I love the work. I love working like that.
Yeah, I would bet you'd love the day-to-day.
I love the crew. I loved going in the fucking director's booth. I loved everybody else. The actual show, I was like, I couldn't quite figure out what I should or shouldn't be doing. I couldn't figure out what it was until I finally got a doctor on there to be on there with me. And then I was like, okay, so you can handle the heavy shit because I'm handling shit I don't want to deal with. And it's only a matter of weeks before you're doing a makeover. So they're tough, man. They're really, really tough.
Yeah, I would like I would like the day in and day out of it. I'd love that. You
work hard.
The regularity of it. I would enjoy. It's so silly. The things that I go, oh, you know what I would like is waking up early in the morning, going, I'm gonna be on TV today. Maybe I should go for a jog, and let's find a gym that we can go to, or hot yoga, and then get to work, and then maybe I'll buy a motorcycle. Like the things that I go, oh, let's live here,
right?
As opposed to the road where I feel like I'm always disconnected from everything.
Right, and then you come back here and you're like, how am I still? I'm a little bit disconnected here too. It's a little.
Yeah, how am I supposed to connect into a house when I'm just here 2 days, 3 days?
Yeah,
like.
Yeah. But then there's a point like where I'm at now where you're like, I sure could get out of this house a little bit more.
No, what was happening with your marriage during this time?
The marriage was great up until after. I think things got squirrely for me because I struggle with some mental health issue stuff, and I didn't know it, and I had gotten to the point where people were seeking me out for advice, and not that I thought I was great, but I was like, fuck, I got to be able to figure this shit out. If I can figure out other people's relationships, certainly I can figure out the 3 or 4 voices in my head that are struggling and fighting each other. Like, I really thought I could get a handle on what was going on, and I just didn't talk about it until I had a nervous breakdown, on the road.
Tell me about that, if you don't mind.
No, it was good. It was, I talk about it all the time. I was, so show gets canceled in 96, and I go on the road, and from 2007 to about 2000, almost 11, I fucking stayed out there, man, because that's all there was.
Show gets canceled in 2006.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they shot it. You knew they weren't coming back, so it ran from 2006 to 2007.
Yeah.
And what was really interesting was, it was big in the black community, which I'd never had a fan base there. And then all of a sudden I was like, man, fuck, oh my God, like walking through airports and being in cities like Atlanta and Detroit and shit, and guys coming up, man, I'd be at the fucking car wash and some dude and just a big ass dude in a fucking Escalade, and the whole deal would like, well, what's up, Mr. Greg?
Oh shit.
What's up, motherfucker? Like, there's just these guys are like, I'm not kidding you. I was in Toronto and a guy comes up and goes, can I take a picture, man? I love my mom's loves your show. I love your show. Can I take a photo? I was like, yeah. I put my arm around this guy and he's got like tattoos, and I was like, I said, what do you do? And he goes, oh, I'm a musician. Oh, I go, hey, that's cool, man. I go, what's your name? He goes, Nas. And I was like, oh. And I don't know. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
You know? And I was like, fuck, he likes this show. Like, he was like a shy, like,
that's
right?
so fascinating.
And I was like,
that's who it appealed to.
And he had the, like, you would when you see somebody that you love, right?
Yeah.
He had the giddy, like, oh shit, oh man, like he was super sweet and nice, and he was really like, you know, if you don't mind. And so the way he behaved, I was like, well, he mustn't. I mean, he didn't seem like somebody who was even a peer.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, he's above a peer, but he really was just gracious and sweet, and you know, didn't want to bother me. And so it was kind of funny to me. And then I got in my car, and he was doing press for an album that he had out that time. That's just the N-word. And that's what it was called. And there was a big controversy about the title.
I remember that about that album. His dad was on it with him.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was, and that sort of like, I remember when I had the talk show, they were like, look, we had all these memos about how to behave and words they wanted me to use. It was so racist. And I was like, look, people are either going to like me or they're not. They're not going to like me because I try and assimilate with these horrible, this is insane. They took photos of me and they photoshopped black press, like magazine ads they put me in a restaurant, then they photoshopped black people in the restaurant.
They're like, oh, they like him.
They obviously did their demographics.
What kind of words
and
do they
like,
want you to use and not use?
Badonk was on the top of the list.
To not use it or use it?
Use it.
Oh, get badonkadonk on there.
And they were like, you know, don't talk about computers. Black people don't have computers.
Oh my God.
It was really, and I remember saying, because I had a lot of fights and I walked out at one point. I made them fire the executive producer, and I said, look, you know, all I have is my integrity. You know, and
if you sit your badonkadonk down in front of a piece of paper or a piece of, not your computer, you'd never put your badonkadonk.
It was so crazy. It was so weird. And I never kind of understood, like, I just, and obviously they'd done research when the demo was like, a lot of black folks watch daytime television. That's it.
Yeah, they were accurate, and they were trying to get in front of the wave, but right. you can't catch a wave surfing if you're too far in front of it. It breaks on top of you.
And what they realized, like, I never, you know, this is what it is in this world, you know, when you're white and you're in white culture, and that's where you end up a lot, and that's who you end up in front of. And you know, we'd go over and perform in Oakland when I was a kid, and you know, when I lived over there, and there's a little bit more diversity in San Francisco, but it's still pretty white, pretty homogenous. LA's pretty white. It doesn't really, you know, it's different now, but it wasn't when I came down here. And so you just don't know who crosses over and who does, right? But I would have, you know, I crossed over very nice. People were just super cool to me all the time.
It's so not predictable.
Not predictable.
You're not a predictable crossover.
No, the only thing it made me feel like was I was like, maybe authenticity, like it just.
I think real respect's real.
Yeah, right. And I felt like, oh man, it's a shame that didn't continue.
Yeah.
You know, shame that it didn't, like, that couldn't never get to explore where that could have gone just in the world, you know, because.
Yeah.
You know, everybody thinks they know what other people want, and they're usually dead wrong. You know?
Oh yeah.
You know, and look, I don't envy people in positions of power having to make big decisions that their whole careers depend on, but your gut usually will tell you, you know, that's not going to work.
I was in a meeting at when we were casting for Travel Channel, and they were like, we should take this Asian couple. We don't have enough Asian couples. And I was like, yeah, but they're really bad for television. And they're like, it doesn't matter. They're Asian. And I said, well, no, they're just not. Their personalities aren't there. They didn't really talk much. And they're like, doesn't matter. They're Asian. I go, well, yeah, but this white couple was very talkative, really kind of like cartoonish in their enjoyment for things. And they're like, Asians are better than whites. Okay, enough said. We're taking the Asians. And I was like, hold on. You're going to choose someone based on their skin color as opposed to their talent level, or opposed to their... And they're like, yeah, we are. We're taking Asians.
Right. It's, you know, and I mean, look, I mean, in the last fucking, you know, in the last year, the world's changed just moment by moment by moment.
Yeah.
I mean, this will be the time people go, man, you put your phone down and you fucking spend an hour just talking to people, and then you pick that phone back up, and now the world's a whole other shape, right? And it is like you start to think about, like, I made a record called Uncool, and I got a development deal for it 4 times, and 3 times at NBC and once at CBS. Same record, same material about being too old to rock. This is all before the thing. Nobody once ever said, "Oh, I wonder what night we would put him on. We don't have another white show." The opportunities afforded to white people were just like, it never even occurred to me that, like, they'd get 1 black kid a year would get, or 2 black kids a year would get a deal at wherever, and then they'd have to figure out where they were going to put them.
Yeah.
Right. And now you go back and you think about that and you go, oh my God, I was there. But it just, it's hard to look up from it while you're doing it because you're in it and you're not thinking about the massive amount of opportunity that you get. Like, I got more opportunities than most people will ever get. I'm very, very lucky.
I said on stage the other day, I have a joke about going to this basketball camp that was predominantly black. And I said you could, go there if you were really talented and it's got you for high school, or if you had white privilege, your dad could pay $5,000 and you could go. And I said, I go, not all white people have white privilege, but I've definitely had it my entire life. And I don't ever want it taken away because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for it. Like, I am a product of white privilege, like wholeheartedly a product of white privilege.
It's a wild, it's like it's fucking the lotto. You're fucking, you're just a collection of cells, and you show up somewhere and you're like, wow, man, what are the odds,
dude?
So it's really like, some days, I start to, when I get, I feel sorry for myself, or I got problems, or I'm doing that, I'm like, dude. Even now, your failure, even if I've bottomed out, I'm bottoming out in a safer place than most people will ever bottom out, around people who will look out after me.
Yeah.
That just is the way it is. Not that I didn't earn certain things in life, or like, you have to be able to walk through doors when you get through them, right?
Yeah.
But it was certainly a lot easier for me to get to those doors. Right now at 54, being white and old, some of those doors are shutting pretty quickly. But I kind of think, look, if you have content that's interesting, if you have a point of view that's interesting, people are always open to it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Always open to it.
I say there's no black human being in this planet that could ever have been, the world would never give them the opportunities I've been gotten, in that I just partied my dick off in college for 6.5 years, and Rolling Stone magazine discovered me and called me the #1 party animal country. That would have never happened in 1997 for any black kid my age. And then you go to New York, and then Will Smith discovers you, and then it's just too lucky. I'm too lucky.
Right. And part of it is luck, and part of it is just what your fucking thing was meant to be.
Yeah.
A lot of times you go, look, man, I didn't invent any of this. I'm just doing the work and showing up, and I can't judge it while I'm doing it either, and I can't apologize.
I try my hardest, but right. I'm well aware of the amount of, I am the luckiest guy you'll ever fucking meet. Let's go back to your mental breakdown.
Oh yeah, okay. So
I've had a few.
I'm in New York, and it's 2009. Talk show's been over for. I'm hustling really hard, and the movie's coming out, so I start doing a lot of press, and now I'm resentful of the thing that gave me a life, because it's too much, and I can't escape it, and I can't get. The people that are coming out to see me do stand-up are mostly women. They come out one time, they have a good time, they get their book signed, and they never come back. So while it looks like I'm doing super well, I know it's not coming back, and I keep calling my managers and saying, you got to lower my ticket prices so everybody can come.
What were your ticket prices at the time?
Fuck. I mean,
35,
45 sometimes. Yeah. It depends. I think they got as high as 50. I was having huge guarantees, but it was, and the idea is, and if you're a young comic listening to this, or anybody, that like, the idea is always going to be strike while the iron is hot. Mm-hmm. And if you do, the iron will then also go off. Mm-hmm. If you're smart and go, because everybody wants to come, but if you make it so only some people can, the fucking everybody will go, fuck you, and move on to something else. And those are the people who come back, the people that can afford to come back more than once, right? It's hard to just turn into Springsteen or Oprah. So if I'd have made my tickets, or done an extra show here and there, or if I had the kind of,
don't
like,
say that. They're trying to add a show in Tampa, and I just said no, and I thought to myself, am I shooting myself in the foot by not doing an extra show? Because I do feel like what you just said, I've always added shows. Whenever they want to add shows, I go add the show.
But also don't look, you know, I made myself, so I did what they did, and I ran, and then I squeezed everything out of the tube and had a nervous breakdown and fucking messed my whole fucking family up. So,
okay, so let's go back to the nervous breakdown.
So anyway, I did a bunch of press. I'd been on The View again, and it was for the movie. It was coming out, and I was at Caroline's on a Thursday night, and it was a pretty full house, but it was, again, many women, and bachelorette parties became sort of a thing for me, as it does. And there was a bachelorette party down in the front row, and they just would not fucking pay attention. And this one girl in particular, the bride was fine. She actually was cool, but sitting sort of at the head of the table towards the back. But the girl right up against the stage just would not fucking stop talking and on her phone, and like just, you know, that thing where... And if you've ever been in a comedy club and kind of like, you know, they fuck up for one table and it sort of spreads, right? And especially if it's up front, you can't get any laughs, it doesn't spread out. So it was just, and it was 20 years to the actual day that I'd started doing stand-up. And I was going down fucking hard. And I tried to deal with it at one point. I'm like, I said to the girl, I go, have you read my books? And she said, yes. And I said, have you read my book, Shut the Fuck Up So the Rest of Us Can Enjoy Our Evening? Because that's a good one. Nothing. Just gets fucking nothing. I go to the other side of the stage where there's people that are like, they're not really laughing, but they're high and they're like staring in the right direction, is what I would say. And I do this bit about magic that I do that's big. It's fucking huge. I talk about how... I love magic. I'm easily fooled. I mean, I'm really like, such a mark. I'm like, you fucking pull a quarter out of my ear, I'll have you. I'm like, you're a fucking wizard. Do it again. Like, I still don't know how it's done. But I don't like magicians. I fucking hate them. And I talk about, it was when David Blaine was Chris Angel. I do this whole thing about how their thing is a fucking come on, and it's a little bit rapish, and also like they don't act like they're magical. You know, if you're magical, you actually wouldn't have to put on a fucking show. Mm-hmm. Like you would have to wear a fucking shitty, like a silver vest. Like, what are you dressed? Why are you wearing high tops with your suit? I don't get you. And I go, and I talk about seeing Chris Angel do this thing on his show where he was in public just pulling birds out of people's purses. I was like, it was really actually a pretty great trick because you were with him the whole time. He didn't. Where the fuck were the birds coming from? Yeah. And I go, but he was doing it like as a come on. He was always picking women, and he would got kind of close to the girls, and even when there was a guy there, he wouldn't even acknowledge him. And I really, you know, and I go, that's not the way you would act if you were magical. And then I fucking show people how I would act if I was magical. And I go into the audience and I go up to a woman, I ask if I can see her in her purse. And I pretend I'm Chris Angel. I go, but if I was me, I go, this is, and then I pull a bird out of her purse and I go, fuck, I can make birds. Why? Like if you were truly magical, you'd be fucked up by it. Whole thing. It's a shouting bit. It's a whole commitment. It gets fucking nothing. And the girl in the front row goes, boo, and she gives me a thumbs down. And I fucking snapped. And I quietly walked over to her and really close in her face, I just went, fuck you. Fuck you. I go, I've been doing this for 20 years. This is the worst set I've ever had. I go, I'll recover, but these people should have burned their money in the fucking parking lot. You are selfish. You are fucking mean. You have a black heart, and I fucking hate you. So it goes quiet. And then she starts crying. She bursts into tears, literally like bursts into tears. Oh. I don't have anything. I had no plan, right? This is a true story. Every word of this is true. So I'm just standing there. She's crying. She starts talking about the book, and she pulls the book out of the purse, and she starts talking about how she had been in a breakup, and she thought we were going to talk about this. Oh my God. And the only thing I have going for me is she has this really ugly, I mean, she talks like this. She was actually kind of cute, but her voice was just awful. Yeah. And she kept, like she started snorting. And so she just sounds unempathetic. It's the only thing I got going for me. And And she goes, she said, she sort of said like something where she goes, I'm alone. And she fucking held the book up. And a guy stands up in the back of the room and goes, no wonder nobody will fuck you. And the whole place goes nuts. And then another guy goes, hey, I'll fuck her. And it just fucking, that just destroys. And I put the mic down and I fucking went off stage. I called my manager. It was still fucking 7 o'clock. I would cancel the rest of the tour. Cancel it. Gotta cancel it. I can't do this anymore. I can't answer any more questions about that fucking book. I can't be a prisoner of this thing. There's no other reason why they should be here because of the book.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I don't have fucking relationship humor. I never did it. I don't like it. I don't like that kind of comedy.
So the whole time they're sitting there waiting for you to go, for you to go, ... he's just not that into you.
Right. It never happened. There's no natural way for that to happen. It was, and also people think they want that, but when you start talking about that stuff, people get super sad. Yeah. They really do. Like, relationship stuff is tough, and people come there and they're in shitty marriages, and you talk about shitty marriage, and they're like, I don't want to laugh at this, man. I just want to go. I just want out. Like, it's real. Relationship stuff is funny if that's what you're there for. Liz and I, when the book first came out, Liz and I did a tour. We did like a book tour, and then we started doing theaters, and we would go up. We'd run a tape of all the cool shit that happened to us. We'd come out. I'd sort of do stand up and tell the story of how the book came about. Liz would talk for a little bit. Then we would take questions. And we sold that 2 nights in Montreal, and it was fucking amazing. Yeah. And that's why I got the talk show, because I was really good at making it funny for people who'd come to talk about that.
Yeah.
But they didn't come to talk about that, but they expect you to talk about that. It didn't work. I think now I would say I'm going to do 2 nights of stand up and 2 afternoon shows where we'll actually just be like a relationship seminar.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Like, I would have made it into a thing, but that time has passed. But if I had, and there was no internet really, it was very
the internet
days.
Wasn't what that was like just around. No, that was probably just when MySpace was taking off. Yeah,
MySpace was sort of happening, and I had this really weird. Here's another weird thing I did. I think I was the 8th guest on Colbert, right?
Yeah.
And he said, what do you want to do? How do you want to do this? And I said, I don't know. I said, I think it's going to be odd anyway, because we're talking about the book. And he said, why don't I talk to you in the first segment, and the second segment we'll take calls. And I said, oh my God, that'd be hilarious. Why don't you start giving dating advice, and I'll be like, what are you doing, dude? And we worked up this whole fake fight thing. So he starts taking calls, and I'm like, what the fuck? That's, first off, I say he's just not that into you. I'm the one that says it.
Yeah.
And we do this whole thing, and at one point I slammed my hands down, I pushed back from the thing, and he was like, oh, that was so great, and we both like that. And the next day it aired, or whenever it aired, maybe it aired, I can't remember how it worked, but it aired, and I was getting on an airplane, and that guy goes, what a dick, dude. He was fucking kidding with you. I was like, what? Colbert? Yeah. He was kidding. I go, dude, those weren't real calls. Did you think that was real? He goes, what? I go, those are fake. There's no call into fucking Stephen Colbert. It's a tape TV show.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that was a joke. People thought it was a real fight. And then they pick sides. So people would come up and say, oh man, Colbert is a dick, man. Or they would say like, and it was so heartbreaking because I was so excited to have done something in comedy with somebody who was like,
that fucking sucks that when you get into your own home, people think you're a stranger.
Yeah. Oh my God, I never put it that way. Yeah, it was really tough. And somebody wrote me this nasty thing on Facebook or MySpace. This guy, he had dedicated his whole page to hating me somehow, and he'd written this thing about me like that. And I wrote him back. I just simply wrote back and said, they weren't real calls, dude. And he said something about Bill Hicks, like something, you're not no Bill Hicks. And I said, first off, motherfucker, I worked with Bill Hicks a few times. And let me tell you something. He wasn't always great.
Yeah.
I go, context is everything. And he wrote me back and said, I may have overshot. I'm really sorry. Which that never happens in the internet.
Yeah, right.
And then we had this sort of dialogue back and forth about Bill Hicks and that kind of thing. He goes, maybe I should go see your comedy. I don't really even know what you do. And I was like,
what happened was you were drawing the ire. Am I saying that right? Drawing the ire out of who are the tiki torches, who are the progressive right now, those guys that feel like they've been misrepresented, that anyone that's trying to help a female get forward in her life or live a full life is holding them back. I mean, I just recently got defined as a misogynist by my wife. And I was like, I'm not a misogynist. She's like, you definitely are. And I was like, no, I'm super progressive. And she's like, not at all. And I was like, oh, I never realized it. So if me, who I definitely think I'm not misogynistic,
right,
if I can get painted with that brush, those guys are genuine misogynists.
Well, totally. And the other thing is you sort of and also there's that comedy. People really like to have the definition, and they don't like it if you're it doesn't make sense to them if, you come down here, and I remember one of the first times I was on stage here in Largo, I fucking, for some reason, for no reason, I ripped fucking Matchbox 20 apart. I don't know, they were just in my ire, and I made some shitty offhanded joke about how bad they were, or something, how they look like they were. I go, who wants to see a band that looks like they're caught up on their credit? I don't want to see guys that pay their bills. and then later on,
what a great fucking line.
And a week later, I fucking met Matchbox 20 because Moon started dating Paul, the drummer. She eventually married him. But Rob Thomas goes, man, we fucking watch your video on the bus all the time, dude. You're hilarious. And I went, oh my God. And then we started, and he was pretty interesting. And then you go, man, you just don't know anybody. You don't, when you see weird friendships in show business, and you're like, how's a guy from the Sex Pistols friends with Weird Al Yankovic? And it's people aren't their art. But for people who define themselves by your art, they need you to be, because they need that sense of no, man, I'm in this club. How you can't be in that club? These are the things you say. It's I know, but I got older and I met that guy and I don't really hate him, and I never really hated him. I just needed to draw a line in the sand for me too. So somebody would come see me, because you can't be everything to everyone.
It's so funny to go back to the David Cross thing. Is I had bumped into him a couple times. He's not the sweetest guy in the world if you don't know him.
Can I tell you this? Yeah. So I live with him, and I'm like, there's another thing. You get older and you're like, oh, some people are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And in our world, and it comes off as rude or egotistical, or they're eccentric, and they really don't know how to talk to you. They don't know when, they don't follow the cues, but they know a few tricks that they've done that they keep doing. David, people would say to me all the time, I go, I live with him. He doesn't even know he's hurt your feelings. He'll say, someone go, he's a fucking asshole. I'm like, oh, he was just asking to see if you wanted to come with us. He wants to take, Dave's always like, let's take mushrooms. It's fucking Wednesday, dude.
Yeah.
But he would always be, he never thought,
I never thought
rude to you and not think that you would dislike him.
I don't think he wasn't outright rude to me at all. By any stretch of the means was he like, hey man, go fuck yourself. He was just, it was, introduction is just awkward, and it's just awkward. And then when I saw that whole thing come out that he was racist, I was like, no. That guy's definitely not racist. And I was like, listen, I'm not Team David by any stretch of the means. I'm a fan of his across the board. I love what he does. I love his stand up. But I was like, I could definitely say he's had some awkward run-ins, but he is not a racist. And that bothered me so much that people would think that David Cross is racist. When I was like, that guy is he is the definition of what stands against racism.
What's interesting about him is if that went down the way she said it did. And
I don't think it went down that way.
But it also, I knew him for a long time. There was, I remember thinking she was a comedian, right?
Yeah.
And you do that thing where you go, oh, we're all around each other. This is our.
She was a comedian. I think she's an actress.
But it's like a safe space.
Yeah. I've said horrible shit to comedians.
Yeah, and especially to each other. I mean, if I can think of some of the first things people said to me that were like, well, I think what Neil Brennan said to me, he goes, oh, I know you. I remember you when you and Patton thought it was funny to just talk about bands and pretend that was comedy, and you ruined it. And I was like, what? Wait, what are you saying?
Kevin Brennan's by the way, Kevin Brennan.
I mean, not Kevin, Neil.
Neil.
Kevin I went on the road with. He was also mean, but they were both.
They're both, yeah.
But that was their thing, and he was just like, that's a way you throw a punch at somebody. And I think David probably was being the antithesis of what he thought she'd expect and being ridiculous.
Yeah.
And thinking she'd be funny about it.
I didn't go to the map for him, but like personally with friends who were like, did you hear about that? I was like, dude, the guy's, I'm not his best friend, but I'll tell you right now, he is not racist. And he falls into the same category as Neil and as Kevin, as like, yeah, I don't think anyone's going to go out and say Kevin Brennan's the nicest guy to get introduced to. No. I love Kevin Brennan. I love David Cross, but like they're not like the most friendly.
No, man. A lot of those guys, Odenkirk has weird rrhythms, and then sometimes he's incredibly sweet, and sometimes I remember, I came home one day and I walked into my house. He was in my house, and I went all the way upstairs to my room, and I came back down. And I go, "Hey, I live here. You don't. When I come in, say hi. I live here."
Yeah.
And I think he jokingly was, oh, yeah. Like you realize like not everyone's like you or has your things. And,
that bothered me so much though when they called him racist, because I was like, he's like, from being around comics who probably are racist and make racial jokes and find that funny and don't find the kid gloves and the nuance of it. Someone like David is offended by that. And genuinely, integrally, he's not like he'll laugh at as any good joke, but he's not. And I was really fucking bothered me. That was one of the witch hunts that I witnessed online that fucking rubbed me the wrong way.
It felt like this tempest in a teapot. Like, look, anybody, everybody has experiences, and you should be able to talk about them. But why not talk about it with David first, or talk about your friend who had the party, or talk about it to people who like the putting it out online, and maybe that's the way. And I'm not talking. I'm talking about the smaller affair stuff. I'm talking about the stuff where you think, man, I understand what you're doing, but there's a bigger train leaving the station right now, and it's real, and it's really, really damaging. And there are gradations of a comedian said a shitty thing to another comedian that was misinterpreted, and people that were boxed in a room and had to be fucking forced to deal with their own sexuality and somebody else's. There's differences, so you have to be able to go, we got to get on. Everyone gets a shot. But the bigger deal is if we move the bigger rock, more people get out. And we got to move that big rock. We get tied up in this little shit. It almost feels like somebody threw that as chum to keep our eyes off of the bigger problem.
Oh, so someone was just saying that the other day about the Louis C.K. thing and about the all the stuff that Trump's releasing. Oh, Trump's releasing the tapes. All the documents about who killed Kennedy,
right? And
I was like, oh, how cool is that? And they're like, no, idiot. It was Ari. He goes, no, idiot. He's trying to get you to not focus on what's going on. And I was like, huh? He was like, you're all about the Kennedy tapes. He goes, he's trying to throw you off his trail. I was like, oh yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, look. At the end of the day, he probably just has some. Like in terms of like actual crimes. He probably has some very fucking shady, fucked up money laundering shit going on. That's probably his biggest, right? That's probably what they're going to get him on, is some kind of like, and it probably has something to do with Russia, and there might be a lot of people involved, right? But most of what it is our senses have been rocked. We had an idea of how things were. We don't like the way he talks. We don't like what he's saying, or some people don't, and he's sort of like rattled our position in the world, and he's banging around in this institution called the presidency, where even your least favorite person that was in there, you felt like, I know, but he's playing by the rules. He was driving it the way it's supposed to be driven.
Yeah.
And I think that's what most people are frightened of, but everybody gets to clutch their pearls right now, and everyone loves to clutch their pearls. Everybody acts like they hate this, and I'm like, you have something to talk about everywhere we go. There's something to talk about every 15 seconds.
Clutch your pearls is such a great fucking phrase.
That's what it is. They're clutching your pearl clutching. Yeah. It's like that whole thing of like, oh my God. And look, I'm guilty of it too. And I'm judgy. And, like everybody else, when this stuff happened, you start going, man, when have I been inappropriate? When have I, is there something that's going to...
I'm sure I've been inappropriate. I've never committed what I guess now is heinous crimes, I've never done anything, like I've never asked anyone if I could jack off in front of them.
I don't have in my head, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
Right? I have like, oh my God, dude, that was, but I don't have You know what I mean? And I have that about haircuts. Like I have a lot of like regrets, and I made mistakes, and I am far from perfect, but I really like, well, were you great to every woman you ever met, or even in person, or did you make good on every promise you ever made to a comic when you're all sitting around? And some guys are like, man, you said you were going to help me out, and you're like, oh, did I? Fuck, I was drunk.
I've never taken a girl comic on the road and ever made her feel less than equal. Obviously they've been features, so I'm like, hey, you need to sell my shirts. No, I'm kidding. But I don't think I have, and I don't think I've never leveraged. But like, I grew up in a time where I said to Leanne, my wife, the other day, we were all talking about this, and I was like, there are definitely more people that have seen my penis than wanted to. Like I grew up in a time where getting naked and running down the stairs at a party was funny, and I guess it was sexual assault, but we didn't know it back then, Well, I mean, that's the thing, like, especially when you're fucking young, man, you're like, there's no rules. You're at college, and look, there's no rules when you're at college, and that's dangerous. That can be very dangerous. And raising girls, you start thinking about that stuff way earlier than you expected to. Fuck yeah.
Now it's on at like at around 11, 12, you're like, people are looking at them and they're self-conscious and they're already on the defense, man. And we aren't on the defense until it's too late. And we go, oh fuck, what were we thinking? Because we are encouraged to be fucking men and run around and do that stuff. And, I picked my college because of fucking Animal House. I was like, well, that happened at the U of O, and I've spent a lot of time in Oregon, and that's where I want to go to college. I don't want to go anywhere else. I love that. That seems like what college is supposed to be. Drinking and being ridiculous. And then you look back on it and go, oh, right. Okay. Well, that can also be reinterpreted a whole different way. If you told somebody one of the best movies of the 80s was about a fraternity house that, fucks up other fraternity houses, you go, ew, that sounds awful. And like, no, it was great.
Yeah. I said on stage, there's two types of guys. There's guys who like to get naked in public, and there are guys that don't like guys that like to get naked in public. And I was the first. Like, I used to have a joke where I'd try to put my dick in my buddy's pocket and then go, have you seen my wallet? You just get real close and he's like, huh? Is it in your pocket? It was just now that's rape. I mean, I'm raping my friends a little bit. You're definitely not allowed to put your dick in someone's pocket.
Right. I feel like if you're putting your dick in somebody's pocket, my guess is your relationship's fairly solid.
Yeah. Oh,
like
if
you're just randomly putting your dick in people's pockets,
not people I didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my morals.
Yeah.
I used to I took a shit in public, and like that. I look back and I go, yeah. Oh, let's hope they don't hold us accountable for crimes we committed 25 years ago. Where I took a shit to win an election. Like, I got up and took a shit to win. I didn't give a speech. I just took a shit, and I won. So I assume the majority was cool with it. I
mean, probably. And I think also people like, look, we can't go back and like, I mean, who knows? Maybe we are going to, maybe everyone's getting a phone call really soon.
Maybe everyone's getting a phone call.
Everyone's getting a phone call, man. Everyone's going to that phone's going to buzz one time and go, that doesn't feel right.
Oh, shit. 805 area code.
It's tough. It is. I know, I was talking to someone about Louis the other day, and I said, I hope, in my heart, and I'm not positive this is probably what happened, but I hope that the day that news story broke, there's a thought inside of him that finally went, oh, it's over. I'm caught. I'm done.
Yeah.
The relief of this is all going to go to shit. I fucked up, and I have he's going to pay the piper for it, right? But it's over, and I can say it. Whatever this thing is, it's wrong with me or makes me do this or whatever it is.
I thought about that so much as this was coming to a head. Yeah. And I said it on the podcast a couple of times. Halston was saying something to me about it. But I said, there's a big one that's coming. It's coming in a couple of weeks. And then I felt like my kid's a fucking moron. My kid is a fucking moron.
What?
Do you hear that?
It was
it's her throwing the ball on the roof.
Nice.
I said I'm complicit because I didn't rat him out. I knew that this was accurate. I didn't,
Here's the thing. So, I had heard a story years and years ago. Too.
I heard it from one of the girls.
Me too.
Yeah.
This was years and years ago. By the
way, Dave Becky, your phone call to them didn't work. They kept telling everybody.
This was the girl that I knew didn't. It is not a person who came forward. This was many, many years ago, and she worked at a club, and she told me, and I said, "Did you tell the club owner or the cops?" And she said, "And lose my fucking job?
Yeah.
You think I can just lose a job? Nothing. He didn't touch her. He did exactly what happened in the, per the description." And I didn't know what to do with that information. I didn't know him very well. I never knew him very well. He was in passing, and I liked him, his comedy. And I've just sort of like, because she was upset by it for sure. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done with the information.
It's not your job. It's definitely not your responsibility or job or right or place to tell someone. There's a famous comedian stole a joke from me one time, and I've told a couple of my close friends who did it, and I've said to them, "Don't say anything. It's not," and that's not their right, or I don't want them to say anything because I don't, because I got to deal with it.
Right, and I can't go to Louis with hearsay, and I can't say it to other people with hearsay, and I have no proof. But what can happen that I think now probably couldn't end, also because we weren't all connected like the way we were. We hear enough stories about a guy, and you fucking go, look, man, there's like 15 of us that have these stories. What can we, do we fucking confront the guy or just say, hey, man?
You got to confront him and go, hey, man.
At the very least, here's what's being said about you, about a bunch of people, and if you need to take care of something, but you know what I mean? But I can't now not, you now know I know, or I've heard. And we've heard. And I think you can do that. And I think that's important. And I think you can tell girls that are comics, and they're going on the road, or they ask you and you say, this is what I've heard.
There's definitely a lot to learn for, I think everyone should know that if you go back to a comics room at 2 a.m, nothing good's going to happen. Don't expect anything good. Just don't do it. If you're single and you don't want to be with that person sexually, don't go at all. Just don't. I don't let women back to my room because that's a married man. Like that doesn't, that shit doesn't fly.
Right.
I don't care how interesting the conversation is. You don't go back to my room. That's
I don't let my girls watch comedy. Yeah. No, it's funny. It's like,
Rebecca Corey did the right thing. She reported it. She said no and reported it. That's the right thing to do. These poor young ladies that had it happen. Oh my God, my daughter's calling me.
Oh crap. We need it.
What do you need?
Someone to play ball with.
Oh, baby. Give me, I'll call you in a little bit, okay? How the fuck?
That's hilarious. I love that. Because she's also playing ball against the roof.
She's playing a ball against the roof.
Yeah.
But I'm not ready to stop talking. I know I got to let you get out of here.
Yeah, that's all right.
But hold on. So I'd like to we'll get off the Louis thing because I don't think we're going to solve anything on this. And I think that, I think all any guy can do is say, I'm not a bad guy. That's all we all end up saying in this.
I'm a bad guy, but I haven't done anything like that. I'm
a bad guy, but I'm not that bad.
Yeah, I don't want to even say I'm not a bad guy because I never know anymore. And the way the rules change all the time, you may actually be a bad guy.
Yeah.
It all depends. But I
want to talk about like your marriage and the nervous breakdown and how that affected that, and
so I came home in 2009, like I really did come off the road, and I canceled a bunch of work, and it was a mistake. I'd like to have that money back, but I needed to like get right with myself, and that's when I started to really struggle with coming home. Wasn't the right idea either. What I needed to do was go talk to somebody. I needed to say to somebody, hey, I know I seem like I got it all going on, but I don't. I think sometimes there'll be these diagnoses of like, well, you're anxious. I'm like, well, you have anxiety and you have depression. I don't know what those things mean, but they don't actually resonate with me because anxious to me seems sort of nervous and depressed seems kind of sad. And I'm a thing I can't explain. And the voices in my head won't shut up. And then I'm fine. And then I'm not. And then I'm fine. And then I'm not. So, and also the thing you're giving me, have you taken it? Because if you start to explain to me how that adventure is going to be and you have no context. So it's pioneer days for that stuff and figuring out what the different manifestations of mental health problems are, because it's not like you go crazy and you don't come back. It's not like these drugs can't work. They can if they are explained, and you're like you have to work with them. Your brain chemistry is going to tell you something new, and you have to know that, because you can be present for your own insanity. That's the thing I learned. It's like if you just slow down, you go, okay, here's the voice that's telling me the truth, and here are the things I know I'm doing are wrong, and here's what they said is real, and I gotta deal with all that, right? And I gotta talk to somebody, and then I gotta start, like, for me, I tried to solve it by taking the dog's pills. Now, that sounds like, well, that's a leap, Greg. Well, what happened was my dogs were old. Remember, to these two rescues that we had. They were pit shepherd mixes, and they had bad hips, and they had a pill that they both took every morning, and it was hydrocodone, and I didn't know what it was because I hadn't taken drugs for years, but I drifted from any kind of like program, and I saw the sleepy face thing and said, well, it's this or suicide, so I think I'll take the dog pill, and that kind of like quieted everything down. But unfortunately, you can't stay on those. They're not good for you, and the drop from them when they're over is further down, so it's messy. So that's where that went.
And the dog pill, I remember, and I apologize if I'm ratting him out. No. I remember I heard this, and it was one of the more fascinating stories I'd ever heard, because apparently a dog's metabolism is different than a human's metabolism.
Right, it burns faster. So they're whatever they were, the hydrocodone, they did the trick in a way that, like, it was that what you were talking about alcohol. It was like everything just went right. And it's nice when you have worry, and you have a lot of people worrying in your head, to not worry. Problem with it is, it doesn't solve the problem. And I think on a spiritualist sort of level, you bring a vibe with you. You know that, like as in show business, you can tell when somebody's winning and you can tell when they're losing. Yeah. And even when people love you, they don't want to call you for some reason. And because you forget that most people see you, especially in show business, is like, look, man, you are a commodity. You got to be a commodity. I don't want to fucking go to the Shell station. They got the fucking shells on the ground, and they forgot to put what color is the station. Like, You're a fucking thing. Put that product back up. Make it shine, man. This is business. It's all business, man. Yeah. You're at a party. It's fucking business, or don't go. Stop pretending we all need to be friends. We don't. And nobody wants to hear it. Take that to your fucking therapist. Don't even take it to your wife. It's not for her. Take it to a place where you can dump it and come back with a solution, because unfortunately, we want everyone to act perfect. And what most people do, especially around here, is they stick with people who can help them only because they're trying to survive. That's all. We're all trying to move forward. And most people who are sad or depressed or angry, they feel like rocks. We don't want rocks. As much as we love them, as much as we go, Marin was a fucking rock for a long time. You're like, oh, this guy, fuck, man, be mad at everything. He just felt heavy. I remember I went to a radio station to do something. We were both on it, and I always liked him, and I always thought he was so smart, but he just seemed so fucking beaten, and he was so particular about who you were supposed to be and all this stuff, and it just was like, ugh. People were like, ugh, and then it changed. He fucking dealt with it. He sort of dealt with it in, off air, but he also dealt with it. He was dealing with it at the beginning of his show. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
He was trying to figure it out. So he was asking people questions. And he was shitty at the beginning. He would say I read a bunch of mean things to Gaffigan. So your crowd's like mostly old women, right? And Gaffigan go, well, no, they're just people that, he was trying to minimize it, right? He was trying to make himself feel better. But as time got on, and now you hear him, and he's a teddy bear with everybody. But he feels like a winner, right? He changed people's thing. It took time. But that's what the requirement is for show business, and it's a lot of pressure, because this is a campus you're always on campus. And
and the dog pills didn't work in an epic way.
They only made the pain go away in the inside, but it didn't help me in any way but I didn't know that, and I kept taking them. And then you were addicted to hydrocodone, which is a bummer. And I just started drifting from everything. Now, for me, you start telling one lie, why don't you tell a bunch of them? Why don't you can, fuck, all bets are off. What other things can I get up to that I'm not telling people about? because
once you tell one lie,
sneaky, yeah, it's all in the same place. You're like, oh man, and plus no one's my friend anymore, and I deserve. And you go hunting for shit. You go hunting for other ways to feel better about yourself, or, and I started drifting from my kids, and I that I can still say I'm doing something with my wife tonight is still a miracle to me. So
you and your wife are still together?
Yeah.
Man, your wife is.
But up until the moment, I mean, like, it's day by day, dude.
Your wife sounds like the coolest fucking chick in the world.
Well, she'd love to hear that. Yeah.
I remember I'm sure it was your storytelling that I've heard the stories of how you guys kept it together, but she was always like going, like both of you kind of fought to keep it together.
Yeah. I mean, at one point I was like, man, I'm trying to move out of this body. Right. Yeah. So I can't imagine why you're still here, but she just wouldn't. She's like, I think she has a little bit of like, I'm not a fucking failure. I'm not going to lose this thing.
That's
and
wife.
I do feel like women have that a little bit more than men. Yeah, guys are a little bit easier. Like, I gotta throw in the fucking towel.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. And so at a certain point, you go, I owe it to me, but I do owe it to her too, and my kids. So, and also we've been writing a How to Be Married book for fucking years, and we just approved the cover. Like, we're just about to get it.
I will read that in a fucking heartbeat.
It's called How to Keep Your Marriage from Sucking, but it's just like, I would love to have both you guys on with me and my wife.
Yeah. I would love that.
We'd love that too. We're starting a thing too, so maybe we'll have you guys on.
Oh yeah. Do start yours and then have us on. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Because you had Walk in the Room. You just did your final episode, correct?
Well, we've done like 5 final episodes. That show's been over for like 4 years. I do a podcast called Rock Out with Your Doc Out, which is just me and my friend Kay, who used to be in the band Letters to Cleo, and she and I talk about rock documentaries. That's it. Because I wanted to do something that like had nothing to do with my career, or something that's easy to talk about, and something I love. Yeah. And every week I have to watch a rock documentary. Like, I gave myself a job I wanted to have.
Best rock documentary out there. Just give me 5 good ones.
End of the century.
End of the century.
End of the century by the Ramones.
Oh, okay. I'm in on that.
Yeah. Dig, which is about 2 bands, one from Portland, one from Silver Lake, they're friends, and their careers go differently, and it's fascinating.
End of the century. Dig. I'm watching these on the plane tomorrow.
Yeah, Dig is a great one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of my favorite of all time is the one called Mistaken for Strangers, which is about the National, but it's not. It's about the lead singer and his ne'er-do-well brother who tries to make a movie about the band. It's one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen about older sibling, younger siblings.
Oh, wow.
And because my sister and I were close, but both were sort of messed up, it just undid me.
Really?
It was
Mistaken for Strangers, Dig, End of the Century.
Yeah. I mean, there's ones I revisit just because I lived it, which I love Hype, which is the one that's about Seattle.
Oh,
you know, and then there's the ones, the clouds, the Petty one is amazing. That Eagles one's, I like the ones.
The Eagles one was pretty fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, the Metallica one.
Yeah, the Eagles one where Don, lead singer of the Eagles, Glenn Frey, was like, he goes, I was in a car with the drug dealer, and we were holding pretty heavy, and we're flying down Malibu, and we're going about 90 miles an hour. And I was like, hey man, you need to chill the fuck out. We got a lot of drugs on us. And the guy goes, life in the fast lane. And he was like, that makes a good song.
Oh my God. And then he turns into almost like, who's the guy from the Fountainhead? Yeah, right. He gets real like, here's a cool story. So when I first moved down here, I was auditioning for shit. I was sort of a bigger dude, and I had kind of long, grungy hair. And I auditioned for Empire Records, and on my way out of my audition, which was awful, I walked into the wall and I knocked like 30 video cassettes on the floor. So the fucking casting director was like, she was howling, and she goes, I got this other thing, I have you come in for next month. So it was Jerry Maguire, and it was to play a football fan who was obsessed with the Tidwell character, Cuba Gooding's character. And I run up to him after a game and I tell him, remember it used to be called a rotisserie football league.
Yeah.
And I would say, you're in my fucking rotisserie league. And I would tell him how much I loved him, and then I'd see a more famous football player and just jet. So that was it. It was a big scene. I I auditioned. I heard nothing for months. Then I got a call. I was supposed to go to Cameron Crowe's office that afternoon. I went audition for him in his trailer out on the Sony lot. He was super sweet. I get the part. I go. I shoot it. It was fucking great. Like, I shot it the whole night. It was like winning a contest. Like, I go there, I have my own trailer for whatever reason. I've got a couple lines, so, you know, and they do a lot of setup and shooting, and fucking Tom shakes my hand. It's me, Tom, and Cuba, and a guy named Kenneth Keith Kallenbach, who used to be on the Howard Stern show and is now dead. So it's us, and we're there all night, and Cameron Crowe comes up, and he just goes, "How great is this, man?" I was like, "What?" He goes, "Just this thing we're doing, man. It's just fun, right?" I'm like, "You know, are you talking to the right guy?" And he just, without interrupting, he goes, "I gotta tell you something, man. We were shooting with Glenn Fry yesterday." I was like, "Oh yeah." He goes, he's in the movie, and he plays the owner of the St. Louis or Los Angeles Cardinals, or where they were at the time. And he goes, "It's the last scene of the movie, right? We shot it yesterday. And all he's supposed to do is just walk down the hallway and do, I'll call you. Just make the I'll call you sign with his hands." And he walks down. He goes, "All right, man. So we'll talk. We're going to get on the phone. Cut. Hey, man. Awesome. Just do the hand gesture." Okay. And action. "All right, buddy. So we're going to do the cut." He goes, "We had fucking 63 takes." What's that all about? And I'm like, "Are you telling this story to a fucking civilian? Why are you telling this weird Glenn Fry story? It was so weird.
What's that all about?
It was fucking great. It was like I got a little inside show business with him.
Yeah.
I got to shake hands with Tom Cruise. At one point, I realized they set the shot up backwards, and I was like, you know, there's a billion people on the side. I raised my hand, I go, "Am I wrong? Is everybody backwards?" And the guy goes, "We'll shoot the movie." And I was like, "Okay, right." And then they go, "Fuck me. He's right. They're all backwards. Why is everyone in the wrong position?" It was like they let me have a win.
Oh,
like it was really, really fucking. It was
cool.
really, really, really fun. Now, however, I got cut out of the movie, which I didn't know about until somebody came up to me. This guy who I didn't really love, who came up to me at the gym and went, "I was at the premiere of that movie last night. I didn't see you in it. Are you? Is it?" Maybe I blinked and I missed it, and I didn't know I'd been cut out. But Cameron Crowe had left me a phone message on my message machine where he said, "Man, it just didn't fit the scene, but you were awesome, and you know, maybe someday we'll work together, and you know, whatever, blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, super cool." And then I decided I was never going to act again.
it's a way to go out.
I can't take that heartbreak.
Go out on top.
Okay, you can't fuck with me like that. Forget it.
Oh,
but,
dude.
Yeah, but it was really, really fun. But the Glenn Fry thing was so rando.
Oh,
right?
It's fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate this.
Dude, it was great. So fun, man.
I've been wanting to do this with you for a whiwhile. And when you and your wife do yours, or if you and your wife want to come over and do one with me and my wife, I would love that. Either way, I hope you know this. I respect the living shit out of you, and I look up to you, and I think you're an amazing talent. And I've been a fan of yours for a very long time, silently, and I think vocally these last few years I've let you know how much.
Dude, you put me back on television. You made that night with Ari, man. That fucking the way you introduced me and everything like that. Fucking like you don't know how helpful you were to me. So back at you, man.
No, I mean, you're fucking.
We always sing your praises. Every club I go to, man. Every time I go to a club, people are like, "Fuck, I'm still wiped out, man. He's awesome." People love you, dude. They love you. They love you. And I was gonna say this: if you decide to quit drinking, a lot of people like whatever you decide to do. Yeah, that's what's happening. That's what's happening.
Yeah,
nothing else. Nobody else has it. Whatever it is, whatever you decide to do, you decide to go vegan. Whatever it is, that's your decision. People will either follow you or they don't really like you. They can go fuck themselves.
Well, I will be making that decision in Tampa this weekend. You got any tour dates coming up?
What do I have coming up? No, nothing big. Nothing. I can't never remember. I'll get the dates wrong.
Bad. Well, we'll plug
at Gregory Behrendt on Twitter.
And that's Berhendt.
Yeah, Behrendt.
Yeah.
It's just me just yelling at the president. That's all I do. I just call him a thin skin. But I use a lot of adjectives.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Never responds.
Well, I'm gonna go have a catch with my daughter.
Yeah.
Dude, I appreciate you doing this, man. Thank you.
Fun, man.